And so just for you to know as well, this has been recorded, so it may be shared with a few other people, just for confidentiality reasons, just in case you wanted to share anything confidential. But just to kick off, let's watch this video, and hopefully by 11:11 we'll be starting to get into the state of collective meditation and prayer for us, and of course humanity as well. So let's just watch this video, and please let me know in the comment section if you can hear the volume okay when I put it on. Give me a second. Right, share screen. Right, cool. Let's go.
Some of you know of my military background, and I was made aware of a very critical thing that may be happening on Sunday.
We're facing an extinction. In the next couple of days, at 11 a.m. or p.m., wherever you are in either time.
Starting at 11 p.m. or a.m., wherever you are, with the first time the clock hits 11.
It's not just a, hey, that's a nice suggestion. It's a scientific reality.
Sunday, wherever you are in the world, just start at 11. In fact, just do it for 48 hours. Do it 3-4 times. 11, 11, 11, 11. So I'm going to share a formula with you that I only share with our members of the International Association for a Disease-Free World.
Well, this is really what you acknowledge is an evolutionary upheaval moment. The planet is unsustainable, and we are, as humans, precipitating what is called the sixth mass extinction of life. The human behavior has to change in order for us to thrive into the future. We're facing an extinction. The most valid, truthful science on planet Earth is quantum physics. There is no science that has been tested or affirmed more than quantum physics, because quantum physics is a science that recognizes that consciousness is creating our life experiences. We, through our mind, are manifesting a reality, and there's a collective reality through collective consciousness. And you say, well, how can my mind be influencing the outside world? Because, oh, it's in my head, and that's where everything is. And I go, yes, you know, you're right. If I put wires on your head, I could read your brain activity inside. It's called the electroencephalograph, and I could read your brain functions inside. However, there's a new technology called magnetoencephalograph, MEG, not EEG. And I say, what's relevant? I say it reads brain function. The probe in MEG devices does not touch the head. The probe is outside. I could read your internal brain functions with a probe on the outside. Our thoughts are not contained in our head. Our thoughts are broadcast. Our brains are like tuning forks. The more individuals that share a common thought, the more power that vibration is given. The power of the vibration determines the unfoldment of life on this planet. How many people are sharing a belief system? In the next couple of days, at 11 a.m. or p.m., wherever you are in either time, putting your thoughts into a vision of a world of being healthy, happy, evolving into a beautiful community, a garden. These thoughts are important because if we collectively broadcast these thoughts when we think them, the amplitude of individuals, numbers, million individuals, will empower that thought to help facilitate a change in our evolution. Your thinking is not just a byproduct of something going on. Your thinking is an active agent engaging change on this planet. We must have new thoughts. The thoughts of fear from the COVID virus and all that is actually distorting who we are, and actually in the real sense of biology, creating a bigger problem with the fear. It's time for us to change that. And so I'm really here with Nia and Dr. Buttar to really hope that you would pay attention to what we're trying to do, because we're all collectively trying to create a better world, and that involves the thoughts that we manifest, not thoughts of fear, thoughts of health, harmony, love. And when we broadcast that in a large enough numbers, and it's already been demonstrated through satellite studies of the electromagnetic fields of the Earth, then when humans collectively are involved with a thought process, it actually changes the electromagnetic field of the Earth, which is giving shape to the physical reality. It's not just a, hey, that's a nice suggestion. It's a scientific reality. Take our time, focus our thoughts on health, harmony, and a beautiful garden. And then collectively we will manifest those. And this is the intention that we really are working on sharing with the world.
Starting at 11 p.m. or a.m., wherever you are, with the first time the clock hits 11, we want you to collectively hold the intention of love and gratitude for the rest of humanity, for our planet, for the new evolutionary process that we are going towards, that is part and parcel of where we are right now on this planet. And it's a difficult time, I understand, but remember that difficult, painful, chaotic time is what leads to that evolutionary process, which is necessary for growth, and that's where we're going. So hold that intention and visualization of where we are going to be in another month, 2 months, 3 months, and then when that clock hits 11 again, 12 hours later, do the same thing again.
So big thank you to Video Advice, Bruce Lipton, and everyone else that participated in that video. It's, I think it's been an evolution. We've been evolving into this space after having the initial shock of everything that's happened and the trauma. And I think as conscious beings, or people that are into yoga, spirituality, naturopathic nutrition, and deeper thought, I think now we're coming into a space where we can really start to collectively think about how we're going to come out of this, and what, like what Bruce Lipton just said about what type of garden we're going to be creating, what our life is going to be out of this, because there's so many variables which are up in the air right now. But one thing we can take control of is our thoughts, our intentions, our heart, and the vibrations and frequencies that we are emitting out. There's so many which are being emitting towards us, but we can really focus now on what we're emitting out and really take control of our consciousness. There's so many different conspiracies and theories and stuff out there. I think now is a vital time for us to connect and to really tune in and put out the collective frequency of love and what we really want after this. So it's interesting that there's 8 people on the call in total, and there's a book called The Power of 8. If everyone could just mute the mics just for a second, just while we...
Sorry.
It's okay, cool. Just give a background noise. So as we just think now, we just passed 11:11, so we were just watching that, giving that intention, but doing that throughout this call and treating this as a kind of meditation, really, this whole webinar as a meditation for ourselves and of course for everyone in our close vicinity, because we may think we're small, but just like what Bruce Lipton said there, scientific, that as we change our consciousness, as we change our thoughts and vibrational frequencies, it changes everyone around us. It's not just us. So there's so many people benefiting, even if you're just sat in the house on your own, meditating and putting these thoughts and frequencies out. We're changing the collective consciousness. And it's said that you can go into a dark room and light a match and all darkness dissipates, but you can't do it the other way around. You can't put a blanket of darkness around light. So light is much more powerful and potent than darkness. And you can see that even through all different films, Star Wars and different films throughout history, where the light almost always in these films overcomes darkness, because people innately know that light is more potent and more powerful, even though dark forces do try to utilize. And they use a very similar energy, actually, because the universal energy metaphysically is non-capricious, it's not selective, and some demoniac, evil or dark forces are able to tap into this energy and to utilize it, unfortunately sometimes for bad and not good. However, when we collectively pray, God, the universe, hears our prayers and it gets implemented. So I was really excited to share this video with you, even though we've got other topics to get into. I was super excited to share this so that we can give that intent throughout the whole of this webinar, is to selflessly and unconditionally put out loving vibrations and thoughts of wellness, health, strength, not being safe. Yes, being safe is important, but let's put out strength, health, wealth, prosperity. And wealth, prosperity and abundance could be living on a community, for example, which is self-sustaining. That's what this has really highlighted for me, is the importance of our tribe and community, and how we need to really tap in and create this for ourselves, so that when things like this, if things like this happen in the future, that we're surrounded by people of like mind, and together we can be stronger. And of course, as long as we're on land with people of like mind like that, the beauty of the digital age, we don't have to actually do that neither. But that's part of my prayer anyway. I want to be around people like that. So it's awesome that there was, I think there's still 8 of us on here. Yeah. So there's a book by Lynn Farrow called The Power of 8. I think it's Lynn Farrow. I haven't read it, but Emma has, Lynn McTaggart. Awesome. Thanks, Leah. Yeah, and it's, I haven't read it, but Emma, it's in the house. What happens is I don't read so much. I listen to a lot, and Emma reads, and then she paraphrases stuff to me. So that's how I used to get by in school as well. So, and I used to cheat basically because I couldn't read until I got into personal development. I literally couldn't read, but when I got into personal and spiritual development, I just started devouring books because I finally found something I was into, and I wanted to read. So I don't know if it was dyslexia or selective dyslexia that I just didn't want to read all the stuff that we were given. Anyhow, the power.
Sometimes we connect with material as we connect with people. So
yeah, too right.
It's in the message, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And it comes at the right time, place, and circumstance. And I think it's no coincidence that there's 8 of us on this call. I thought it was going to be 11, but yeah, there's 8 of us, and 8 is, of course, the power of is a sign of infinity, and so I think that's a sign in itself. And it's not the quantity; it's the quality. That's because, and I'm learning that more and more and more now with social media and with what's going on. It's not so much to do with the amount of friends you've got, the amount of followers you've got. It's about boiling that down and getting a concentration of ones that really matter, ones that are going to be there for you, that you can count on, that have got your back in times like this and not shooting you down. And it's, yeah, I think it's vitally important now for us to really do that. And one of the things, I've been caught up in the whole thing of followers and friends and everything on social media, but I think now I'm definitely coming out of that, and so much so that I used to have everything public, but now it's just only friends can see my stuff now. So whoever's in my circle, only them can see my stuff unless they become a friend, because I got so many so-called friends on social media, which, yeah, we don't know. Yeah. And it's highlighted a lot of that. So with that, let's get into the session. So thanks for giving your intentions and stuff out to the collective, and please try and do it if you're awake at 11 or at 11 minutes past 11 tonight as well. If we could focus that energy again, because collectively, just like what Bruce Lipton was just saying, it can really make a difference. And with that, let's get into the main session. We may go a little bit over 12, but we're supposed to be finishing at 12. But let's get into the main session. So, tell you what, I'm going to share the screen. No, not yet. I'm going to share the screen with you a little bit later again. Actually, there's some people still waiting for a link. Let me just send these links so they can get in. There was supposed to be 8 of us on that, but then I think there's going to be a couple more joining us now. Cool. Just make sure there's nobody on the email. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so igniting your warrior and warrioress spirit. That's the first heading we've got. So you may know that I had last year, well, obviously some of you are members already of the Warriors of Peace with Satya Haridas. That's the group that I've got on Facebook. If you want to join, by all means, check that out. And it's a safe place really where we can talk with people of like mind, and you can put stuff out, and unlike with your conventional friends lists, you can put stuff out, and usually it's quite, people are receptive and they don't shoot things down and just question things for the sake of questioning them and just being pains. So it's yes, it's a nice, it's quite a smallish group, like 500 odd people, but it's yeah, there's a lot of Hare Krishna devotees on there, Kundalini people, yogis. There's a lot of people that are into high vibrational stuff. So yeah, by all means. So that's called Warriors of Peace, and that's what I'm about, really. I'm just about, because what I found in my journey is that it's times like this, times of hardship, which have been the most transformational in my life. And when I lost my dad, for example, or when I got depressed, suicidally depressed, these times in my life have been the catalysts to really make me search and dig really deep for my faith, and to call out to God and call out to the divine and ask for the truth to be shown to me. So hence why I put the title about igniting your warrior and warrioress spirit, because the beauty of times like this, I use an example in a previous webinar of funerals of all things. But one thing about this and about things like that is that people are hyper focused, if you like, or we put aside like our daily thinking and our daily things for a while, because we have to, in one sense, because everything has changed about our daily routine. So it forces us to put aside those daily, yes, we've got routine stuff that we need to do, especially if we've got families, etc., living with loved ones or whatever, but our daily routine gets changed. And within that, it gives us an opportunity to search deeper, to look within, and to say, like, what the hell is going on here? Because this is not our home anyway. And we're trying to, myself included, we're trying to live a blissful and utopian life in a material world, which is not our eternal identity. Our eternal identity is our spiritual identity, and that's eternal. Everything here is most things here is temporary. Love and our spirit is eternal. So we're like fish out of water in the material world. So we're trying to enjoy things eternally, which are finite. So they're going to finish. So obviously that doesn't fit together, because we're trying to enjoy something that's eternal, which is finite and it's going to end. So it's imperative that we try to gain these realizations and deepen these realizations, and that's what times like this really do. They help us to reflect and think, oh yeah, it's a bit of a rude awakening, but it's like a slap around the face and say, look, wake up, get back to your eternal identity. This is our temporary identity, and we're trying to enjoy this material nature, which isn't our eternal identity. So what I'm talking about is mostly coming from the Vedic culture. However, I've studied metaphysics and Christianity, Buddhism, not to the extent that I have of Vedic culture, but most of that was like that's like the pinnacle of everything that I've searched from, really. I found that there's so many answers within Vedic science which go very, very deep and explain a lot of things about our existence, why we're here, where we go when we die, and what's the point of all this. So, but by all means, put these through your filters of what your faith is and what your belief in God or the divine is, or the universe. By all means, whatever I'm talking about, translate that into your belief pattern. Because at the core of most of these faiths and traditions is a very similar message, if not the same. And it's love thyself, love thy neighbor as thyself, as it says in Christianity. So it's and ultimately serve people as you'd love to be served yourself. And then in doing so, we can gain realizations to go deeper into our faith, into our love for our eternal identity and for the creator or the divine identity. So the divine personality, as it says in Vedic culture, it's the divine has got a personality, just like we've got a personality. If we think that the divine hasn't got a personality, we've got something that the divine has not got. So that as above, so below. So whatever's up in the spiritual realm, I say up, it's everywhere in one sense, but we tend to say heaven is up and hell is below, right? And but it's so everything that's up there is here. So there's personalities there as well. It's not just nothingness and oneness, but of course there is that also. But there's different planes of consciousness to get to that personality, and that's one thing within this is this isolation. This is beautiful that we're able to connect like this, because within isolation, we're social beings, and even on the spiritual platform, we have relationships, eternal relationships, and it's that's one thing that's kind of been taken away from us, but it can't be taken away from us. Just like I was saying before about light and darkness. Light always overcomes darkness, and there's always a way to overcome it, no matter how much evil-minded people want to control and dominate and be God. They can't be, because that role's already taken, but they try their best to do that, and they usually end up tying themselves in knots. Just like our friend Bill Gates right now, he's having a myriad of things being thrown at him, and he's just shining a light on the stuff that he's doing. So he's just saying, like, yeah, this is all what I've done, and then people are like, oh well, that's not so good, so he's going to get shot down for it, and karma's going to catch up with him, because that's one of the laws, universal laws of nature. As we give, we receive. So in one sense, we don't have to. It does infuriate me, but in one sense, in what is going on. However, in one sense, we don't have to worry about that, because it's not. This is a really good point. It's not necessarily our position to play out the karma for these people. However, sometimes we've been given the intelligence and we've been given the guidance in order to stand up and be warriors and warrioresses in times like this. There's no coincidence that we're on this call. There's no coincidence that we've been given this deeper knowledge because of previous karma, or because of our soul has learnt this stuff, not only in this life, but in previous lifetimes, that we're able to understand this stuff on a deeper level, so that we can be there as beacons of light for other people. And I'm not saying that in a egotistical point of view. It's just a point of observation, that there's different levels of consciousness, and that when it's said in Vedic teachings that there are people above us, and there are people below is a wrong term, but it's the easiest way to explain it. But there are people below us which we should give a hand up to. In other words, share whatever we've learned to get to where we are. There are people on the same level of us that we should embrace and be friends with, just like what we are. And there are people that are above us, so-called above again, it's for want of a better term, that we give respect to, and they share the knowledge. If we're receptive to these people, they share their wisdom and knowledge with us. So always we're going to have those three different spheres, because we're conditioned souls. We're always going to have, and nearly always, I believe, we're going to have those different people within our lives. So it's nice to think of that. It's not an egotistical thing, but it's just a discernment thing to understand where we're at. Because just like the sat nav, if we don't know where we are at, if we can't type in the postcode where we're starting from, then it's not going to know where to take us to. So we have to find out where we're at, and then from that position we can fight from a place of strength. There's a beautiful story. I might fudge it a bit, but the essence of the story is that there's an elephant and a crocodile, and they're both in a fight. And they're on land, and the elephant is kind of winning, but then the crocodile takes the elephant and lures the elephant into the water, where of course the crocodile is strongest. And the essence of the story is just that we need to put our position in, we need to be in a place of strength in order to fight. So when we come in, and it is a fight sometimes in material. I spoke in a previous webinar about the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken on a battlefield. So it's a religious or a spiritual book, if you like, but it's spoken in the middle of a battlefield. So it's like, that's where we're coming from with Vedic science. Of course, we're coming from a place of unconditional love, but also an understanding that there are loving forces and there are evil forces, and that happens on many different spheres and many different levels of consciousness. So it's coming to that understanding that it's not necessarily all love and light. On the highest platform, we do see with equal vision, according to the Bhagavad Gita, we see with equal vision a dog eater, an elephant, a sage, and it says all of these different people that we see with equal vision. However, that's a very high level of understanding. Just like I said earlier, my friend Bill Gates, that's not how I feel. However, on the topmost platform, even our enemies, we can understand that it's all part of a play, just like Shakespeare said that the whole world's a stage and we are merely players. We all have our entrances and our exits, and so it's coming to that understanding that this is a play. It's our karma that's fitted into this, and somehow on a soul level we are here to gain our lessons, to gain our understanding of what the hell is going on, and to serve ultimately the divine, and our fellow humans, our people within our circle and our network, so that we can serve each other and help to elevate our consciousness and to get to that position where we don't have to come back to this place that's not our home, because this is our temporary identity and it's going into what our eternal identity is. So I wasn't planning on getting into so much of this, but it's interesting. Just like I said earlier, it depends on what when you're teaching or when you're speaking or sharing, it depends who's on things as to what comes out. And I remember Divamarita Maharaj, a guru within the ISKCON movement, the Hare Krishna movement, and he would intentionally, if he was doing like an introduction talk to people that were coming to the temple, because as you can see, like the Vedic science is quite deep, when he was giving an introduction talk, he'd intentionally tell the devotees not to come into the talk, because if the devotees would come into the talk, he would raise his talk and it would be way too deep for people that are just coming into it's their first session, and he could blow their brains, they blow their circuits as such, you know. So it's interesting how that works. And I know a lot of you are teachers and therapists yourselves, so you will recognize that when you're with certain clients, you know how far you can go until the blinds start coming down. It's like, whoa, start rewinding back, and then you can see with people that the blinds start coming down. They start looking like you got two heads, and then that's the time to start reeling it back in. So that might be my time now. I don't know, but so that's really how to ignite our warrior spirit, is to recognize actually who we are. Our warrior and warrioress spirit is to recognize our eternal identity. And as I've said before as well, it's a difficult one, and I personally have this going on right now, and I feel like I need to take some guidance personally also, because it's difficult to know sometimes when to fight and when to like pray and meditate and step away from the noise. Because there's a lot of noise going on right now. There's loads of noise going on online, and it can be challenging to discern whether to spend more time in meditation and on higher consciousness stuff, or whether to research more as well. And I got a little sign actually just recently. I had a lovely document which I can share with you. It's quite deep though. It goes into quite a lot of stuff, but it really helped me after looking into lots of conspiracy studies, so-called conspiracy or truth theories, whatever you want to call them, prior to joining the temple as a monk. When I heard all these different things about governments and evil and satanic things, I was a bit like, not quite sure about that, you know. I kind of could understand it, but because of what's presented, it's very illusory. Actually what's presented to us by media, mainstream media and stuff, can be very confusing, because when you hear truth then from, say, conspiracy or truth theories, it can be really confusing, because what we're being presented with is different to what's going on behind the scenes, if you like. And that's one of the natures of the material. It's called Maya, and Maya means illusion. Even though it's real, we're here in the sense that I can see you now, I can feel your presence and your energy, and when we're with other people, we can and in that moment, in one sense, it's real. But the illusory aspect is that it's temporary. That's the key, because it's one thing to say, oh, it's all an illusion, and like I said earlier, it's all just a play. Yes. However, the illusory aspect, it's real when we're in it, but the illusory aspect is that it's temporary. And my metaphysics teacher always used to say, this too will pass. And in anything like this, it's a really good thing to, it sounds very simple, but quite difficult in implementation, to actually, when there's so much mayhem going on around, to think, oh, this too will pass. And it will, like other things have passed. Like we've had many difficulties and challenges in the past. But the key is how it's going to change in the future, which we'll get to at the end of the webinar. Hopefully is how we're going to start to paint our picture, paint our garden, as Bruce Lipton was saying. And I think that's where we're at now as spiritual beings, people that are into this type of stuff. I think we really need to collectively start to paint that picture and get it more vivid in full color HD, so that we can literally start to come out of this. And however, also remaining real and pragmatic and realizing what's going on. The document that came to me that if you want to share, just drop me a message. Like I said, it's quite deep in parts, but what it helped me to understand is that spiritually, yes, we need to tap into love and light and bliss and purity, all of the beautiful things, but also we need to be equally aware of the material world, and we also need to research and understand the material world, because if you don't understand a maze, for example, how are you going to get out of there? So we need to understand this maze, we need to understand the illusory energy that we're in, and then when we get to a point of understanding the illusory energy, then we can learn to overcome it bit by bit. And the more we engage in that, the deeper we go with it, and the deeper we build our relationship with the divine, the more help and guidance we get along the way. And we get little nuggets, just like Hansel and Gretel. They drop their sweets on when they're going on their, I think it's sweets, right, or bread or whatever they drop when they're going to their, anyway, I'm not so familiar with the story, but you know what I mean. It's where they're given their path, right, of so that they can get back to where they've come from. So it's a little bit like that. Sometimes we can't see the next step until we can't see the staircase until we take the next step. And then when we take the next step appears, and then the next step. But sometimes we don't get to see the whole staircase. It's just one step at a time. So when we take the next step, everything else starts to open up to us. So when we're being given things, and you may have noticed that when we get given things, if we don't act on them, they'll come again another time, and then maybe we don't act on them again, and then they'll come again. But then when we act on them, then it opens up another thing, and then it's like on to the next one, because there can be this illusion that we're going to get to, like I said earlier, where we can get this utopia thing on top of the mountain, everything's peaceful and we just meditate, happy days. But it's not usually like that. It's usually we have goals, we attain them, and then we get to that place and we realize there's new challenges, sometimes even bigger challenges than they were below. But it's just like I said about the depth of teachings, dependent upon the years of listeners, is the same thing. It's like exams in university. So we get I think there's SATs and stuff, or there's even like junior school exams now, which weren't there when I was there, to go up to comprehensive. And then you get something after Form 1 and 2, I can't even remember the name of them now. Then you get GCSEs, then you get A-levels, then you get university and masters. And it goes up that way, because you can't unless you're like born hyper intelligent, you can't go to the masters without learning the lower stages first. So we also need to go through those stages of learning, and if we don't learn the one level, we don't get on to the next. Cool. So let me just right, I just want to, for the next bit, I want to highlight enthusiasm. Let me just make sure that everyone's in. Yeah. So the actual title for the next part is how to use so-called negative experiences to fuel your enthusiasm. But first of all, I just want to share the screen with you to, I thought it was interesting, like a few years ago, I realized, oh, there's 11 in now. I thought there was going to be 11 initially, and that meditation was for 11 o'clock. So I like 11. You may already have seen like 1111s. They're really good numerologically to show you're on the right path and stuff as well. So enthusiasm. So let's see if I can minimize this to, yeah, cool. So I don't, you may be aware already anyway, but just bear with me. So enthusiasm, Wikipedia, so, you know, it's open for everyone. Generally, enthusiasm is thought of as you're inspired, you're motivated, but there's a much deeper meaning to enthusiasm. So we can, like I was saying earlier, we can really use this time of so-called negative things happening externally to tap into our enthusiasm. But let's have a look what the real meaning of it is. So enthusiasm is intense enjoyment, interest, or approval. The word was originally used to refer to a person possessed by a god or someone who exhibited intense piety. So it's got a much deeper meaning than, like, enthusiasm is thrown around these days, isn't it? But it's got a much deeper meaning than we may first know about it. Maybe you're aware of this anyway. But so the word was originally used to refer to a person possessed by a god or someone who exhibited intense piety. And moving on to the historical usage, the word originates from the Greek, well, I can't pronounce that, that's for sure, from and meaning possessed by a god's essence, applied by the Greeks to manifestations of the divine possession. So many of us are familiar with other types of possessions, but just imagine divine possession. Oh, that's very beautiful, isn't it? Because the word possession has been utilized for evil and negative things, but just imagine divine possession instead. By Apollo, or, and forgive me if I fudge some of these words, Dionysus. The term enthusiasm was also used in a transferred or figurative sense. Socrates taught that the inspiration of poets is a form of enthusiasm. The term was confined to a belief in religious inspiration or to intense religious fervor or emotion. And the word emotion is energy in motion, right? So when we tap into that divine consciousness, if you like, then we start to get our energy in motion, emotions flowing. So from this, a Syrian sect of the 4th century was known as the enthusiasts. They believed that by perpetual prayer, ascetic practices and contemplation, man could become inspired by the Holy Spirit in spite of the ruling evil spirit, very important at this time, which the fall had given to him. So just like I was saying, they talk about fall in Christianity and stuff, but it's just basically in essence saying that we've fallen from our eternal identity, and it's often used in a negative sense, but it's just basically we're not in our at our true identity. From their belief in the efficacy of prayer, they were also known as Ushites. I hope I pronounced that right. So I don't think there's a need to go into the rest of it, but just to give you an idea really of where I'm coming from when I'm talking about enthusiasm, it's not just like on a mental, emotional or neuro-linguistic programming level. We're talking about deep enthusiasm. So things that are going on right now, they've really helped me to realize where I'm at spiritually, and to realize that the first place I went to was not God, and was not, in one sense, yes, I was praying and chanting and stuff, but I witnessed some of my God brothers and God sisters and people that are more evolved than me, just like I was saying earlier about people on a different platform, where they went straight to chanting in the streets and straight to connection. I wasn't like that. I went straight into research and find out what was really going on, and I went into quite a lot of rabbit holes. And if I'm honest, like when in the social media, a few battles I got into on social media, it wasn't keeping me on the higher planes of consciousness. So, but what this can do after we get through that initial shock or trauma of the change of what's happened is it can really help us to tap into that and to tap into our eternal identity and to tap into that enthusiasm. I was listening to Alex Jones yesterday. InfoWars, you may be familiar with him. I don't tend to tap into too many conspiracy theories anymore. I used to, but what I feel like when I tap into too much of them, I find that I can start to oscillate at a level of fear. I can feel that I don't feel settled in my body and my emotions, and I feel like reactive instead of proactive. So we're going to get into that in the last bit now, about love taking action and fear causing paralysis. Because when we're in a state of fear, so let's get into it now. When we're in a state of fear, then oftentimes it paralyzes us. I will get back to Alex Jones now. I believe it's Alex Jones. So when we're in a state of fear, that causes paralysis. But he was saying yesterday, and I read this as he's in his state of, he's acting out his dharma according to his karma and where he's at right now. Like I said about the sat nav, we all need to find out where we are. And then from that place, we can fight from a place of strength. And he was talking about how governments and different people have tried shutting him down. Because if you're familiar with InfoWars or Alex Jones, he's into massive conspiracies, but a little bit like David Icke type of stuff. And but a lot of it's coming to fruition, a lot of it's showing us truth now. So it's very interesting, and a lot of people have called him crazy, and oftentimes that's been perpetuated by mainstream media intentionally to bring him down. He's banned from YouTube and many different social media platforms. But one of the things he said is he's also been targeted, like on a very serious note. He was on London Real interview, if you wanted to look it up, yesterday. But he said he's been targeted. But now when he gets targeted and threatened, he realizes that he's on track and he's on purpose and he's on his mission, and it really enthuses him, and he gets actually loads of energy from it because he knows that he's making a difference. And Srila Prabhupada, who brought the teachings over from the east to the west, the Hare Krishna teachings, he always used to say, one of the quote, not always, but he used to say, one of his quotes was, the caravan, the dogs will bark, but the caravan will keep moving. Very simple. But so, and within those types of conversations, he would also say that if you're not having that offense, if you like, if you're not having people which are, like what people were doing on social media to me, but in past, see, because I've had a people-pleasing type of mentality, that would shut me down, put me into fear, and think like, oh no, I need to please these people now, I need to make it okay for them and everything, but no, we're not people-pleasers. We need to please our soul and our eternal mother and father, not other people, which necessarily, of course, we've got to be nice and kind in certain circumstances, but we don't necessarily have to please or placate people. And spirituality, and true spirituality, can be like a battlefield, and it does. And as bhakti yogis, yes, we're into love, but we're also into defending and fighting for other people when necessary. And notice I said other people. So if we're defending ourselves and our own ego, then that's when we're getting into more ego stuff. But if we're defending humanity, our family, friends, community at large, or the humanity at large, the whole world, for example, then that is allowed, and it's actually condoned to get angry in those situations. It says in scripture, you're actually allowed to get angry in those situations because you're standing up for righteousness. You're standing up for what's for goodness, for light, if you like. And so that's what I mean when I say tapping into your warrior and warrioress. But it can be a challenge to distinguish or discern where we need to be quiet, have some space, or fight. Sometimes we need to fight. Sometimes we need to write letters to our MPs about 5G, for example, or whatever it is. We need to do some pragmatic and practical things while trying to keep our consciousness at elevated levels. So with that, let's go into the last bit of the talk, and then we'll open it up at the end. So we'll aim to finish the talk at about 12, and then we'll open it. So fear equals paralysis, love. Well, we've kind of gone into it anyway. Love takes action. So let's get into the take action side a little bit more. Just alluded to it a little bit then. Forgive me for talking fast. When I get excited, I talk really fast, and I've done lots of training in public speaking, and in all of the trainings they say you must be composed and you must speak at a pace where people can digest and understand things. And when you're talking about something that's emotive and feeling, and you need to kind of really connect deeper and slow down and put your hand on your heart and all this stuff. But to be honest with you, it goes out the window when you're actually doing things, with me anyway, because like I said about enthusiasm, I feel like I channel sometimes. I feel like, just like it says in that enthusiasm, I step aside, hopefully anyway, maybe it's my ego talking this, and maybe I'm slipping into ego just even saying this, but I try my best anyway to stand aside and just allow things to flow, and if they come out fast, they come out fast, what the hell. And on that note, interestingly enough, I often talk about this, just before we start to wrap up, talking about enthusiasm. And I said earlier that I didn't read books in school. I used to cheat and read the back of books and just get my friends to paraphrase them back to me, and then be like, oh, brilliant, and then I do my homework. Because looking back, I think I may have had a type of dyslexia, or anyway. So within the Hare Krishna movement, there's a really beautiful soul, and he's got a series of books which are called it's Warrior, it's something Warrior. Hopefully it'll come to me. If it doesn't, you can ask me, but they're quite hard to get hold of. And his name is Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Beautiful, beautiful soul. And he gives the story of, he had a stutter, and he used to have quite a profound stutter. But anytime he would start talking about God or God consciousness, it would just flow out of his mouth. So it's just beautiful, isn't it? How when we actually do tap into our enthusiasm, our purpose, our mission, our warrior, our warrioress, how we can then get into that space of, like athletes call it, getting in the zone. And I think that that's key to finding where our purpose and our mission is, when we are able to get, when we're able to get into that zone, that flow state. And it may not come all the time, but when we do have glimpses of that, when nothing else exists and we're in the present moment, I think that's a sign to say that we're on path and on purpose to finding out who we really are, and also what our kind of purpose and mission is, and our collective karma or dharma is in this life of what to do. So within that, so love, fear equals paralysis, and love equals action. So just opening this up really for you to contemplate and to see throughout this and now in your life and stuff, where are you being paralyzed by fear? And that may be, like I was saying about speaking up, like I've been through a massive journey with social media, and a huge thing is just like coming out, if you like, and but coming out spiritually, coming out as a spirit soul. Like, as some of you may know, I've been like a rugby player and stuff in the past. I've been one of the boys. I've been a bit of a nutcase. I shouldn't say, that's not a very politically correct term, sorry. Forgive me, I'm not very politically correct. I don't mean it in a malice way, but I've actually worked as a mental health nurse. So yeah, so coming then to a spiritual path, it can be quite challenging, because when you start taking action and putting things out and putting posts out or sharing things from a different perspective, people still sometimes hold you in that old consciousness, and it can literally stop you from sharing this stuff and stop you from being in your power and being in your warrior spirit, being in your enthusiasm and being in the love state. Because It can totally paralyze you because you're stuck in fear of what others think and going back to that people-pleasing mentality. And maybe I'll do another one another time about like narcissism and codependency. I've had a lot of realizations around that in my own persona, and also in a lot of things that have happened to me. So in different relationships, it's a whole new seminar that is, but in different relationships, we act as people pleasers, or sometimes we may be the narcissist or the controlling person, dependent upon which relationship we're in. We act differently according to our conditioning and the past hurts and traumas that we've brought with us to this point. But what's really enlightening is when you just don't give a damn. When you get to the point where you just think that, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And that's what I love about these people, which have got like millions of followers. Brian Rose from London Real, Alex Jones, David Icke, these people now that are speaking out without fear, and they're just speaking out. And yes, they probably got loads of trolls, but they've also got loads of people which are backing them up. So the point I'm saying is that unless, just like what Prabhupada used to say, unless you get in opposition, unless you're getting people which are opposing you, then you're not necessarily making a difference, and you're staying in that place of equilibrium. However, when you are making a difference, you get people that love you. Which way are you looking at this now? People that love you and people that hate you. And it's a pendulum. We're always going to have that. It's the material word, duality. But all the time we're staying in mediocrity, that's when we're in pleasing mode usually. Then we're not necessarily getting anyone that really kind of loves us and gets us, or anyone that really hates us. Some of the speakers actually say that it's really good to get loads of haters, because when you start getting loads of haters, you know you're going to have equally as much lovers. So it's not about us being loved and accepted. And yeah, of course, those things are really nice, but oftentimes we're playing into that from our previous stuff, from our upbringing, from our where we've been parented and stuff, or bullying schools and stuff. So it's getting out of that, but not for ourselves, but for humanity at large, to become a better servant, to become a better, to become someone that, I said, doesn't give a damn. I don't mean that maliciously. I mean that you don't care in the sense that you do care. You care very deeply. You care so much that you're putting yourself aside in order to share this stuff, regardless of how many times you're going to get shot at. So I think that's what I wanted to get at about love taking action. So it may mean that we do need to put our heads above, and we may take a few shots, but we're taking it in the spiritual battle, if you like. So I think I've spoken enough now, and I just wanted to open it up and to see if it relates to you in any way, or any realizations, or anything you'd like to share. And you can unmute yourself, and perhaps I'll for this section, I think I'll put the recorder off so that everybody can share openly, and we can just in the safety, knowing that it can stay within this close-knit people that have made a commitment and given a donation and stuff. So we're in this nice safe place. So let's just pop the recording off for a sec.